Well, welcome to another one of these updates. We've been trying to tackle issues as they come up so as not to avoid, so as not to be caught up with the deluge of information that must be flowing your way from various sources. Because right now the news cycle is a busy one, and if we leave all of the issues for one press conference or one engagement with the press, I guess you will not be able to get our perspective on various issues as they unfold. So it was extremely pleasing this morning to look at the newspapers and see that the Kaichor news story, which is on the front page, where they showed the results of 17 boxes and the fraud that was committed in those 17 boxes by Mingo and his co-conspirators. They independently verified the data, and so all along the People's Progressive Party has been making this point and releasing quite a bit of information about not just the pattern of the rigging and what the recount is demonstrating, that clearly that there was inflation of APNU's votes and a reduction of PPP's vote. So we have been doing this all along, but now Kaichor News has independently verified this. And so in the 17 boxes that they spoke of, those of you who have not had a chance to read the article, and I would suggest that you read it, APNU's vote was inflated by 778. And the PPP lost in Mingo's declaration 331 votes. So clearly you see a pattern of rigging that took place. And now you understand why there has been a reluctance by APNU and by GECOM to release their statements of poll. The next big issue that the story confirmed, first of all, it confirmed that there was rigging. There was inflation of APNU's votes in Region 4. And secondly, it confirmed that the statements of poll that the PPP uploaded since March, we uploaded all of the 879 statements of poll for Region 4, that the recount is matching almost exactly those statements of poll. So the statements of recount are matching them. And that is what we've been saying a recount would prove, that we were right all along, that the statements of poll that we got from GECOM that we uploaded, so they're not PPP statements of poll, they were just in the possession of the People's Progressive Party or counting agents, and received those on the night of the elections. That this has been proven now that the PPP uploaded the authentic statements of poll. So we plan to today release some additional data, because Kaichor News story covered 17 boxes. So we will give about 52 examples on the East Bank itself, where if you total up the number of votes that was inflated for APNU, increased for APNU in 52 boxes, these come up to 2,827 votes increased for APNU in 52 boxes. And a reduction in those 52 boxes of 718 votes for the People's Progressive Party. Now, if you add the two, that means that 3,000, the results in just those 52 boxes would be off of the actual results, the authentic results, by 3,545 votes in just 52 boxes APNU benefited from in the Mingo's declaration. And you would know that the only 165 of the 879 boxes in Region 4 has been counted so far. So 165 boxes of the 879 in Region 4 counted. We've given 52 examples, 52 cases where APNU now has benefited from over 3,500 votes in just those 52 boxes. So there'll be much more to come later to establish the pattern of the fraud that took place. Now, I just want to bring you up to date, that having established that the only thing APNU has been going around saying, oh, the elections are not credible because of these wild allegations that they are making. But I've been saying that the only thing not credible about these elections would be the Mingo's declaration. And that's the elephant in the room. That stares them in the face. But they don't mention that at all. Not a single word. And whenever they ventured to mention something about it, like Patterson did, he's saying that their statements of poll conform Mingo's figures, but he's unwilling to release their statements of poll. So that is a crucial issue. Now, I have seen Mr. Vincent Alexander saying that the CARICOM team expressed some concern about the length of time that the activity is taking. And this has been a concern of all the political parties, the international observers, everyone concerned, with the exception of APNU. And so the CARICOM team, too, expressed that concern directly to Mr. Granger. He expressed, I was told that Mr. Granger expressed a desire to have them remain in the country throughout. We also are happy that the CARICOM team is here, and we're concerned that they may be frustrated because they've been here for quite a while. They were first told like 2 weeks, then 25 days, and now it would be extended if they only agree to 2 workstations, which is what they seem to have agreed to, then it would be extended for much longer. So I can understand the frustration of the team. I have no doubt that there are elements within APNU who would like the team to disappear, to go away. Because the CARICOM team there is a major safeguard. And so I'm happy that Mr. Granger said that he wants the team to remain. This morning, I called the Secretary General of CARICOM, and I thank him for the patience that they have expressed and the work of the team thus far. And I also share with him our desire to have the CARICOM team remain for the duration of the exercise. And if this means having a joint Mr. Granger writing the head of CARICOM, and I also can write the head of CARICOM to say that this is our mutual desire to have the team remain throughout. I'm not so sure that the riggers would be very happy with this, but we're taking Granger at his word. at a face value of his words, and if we both want the CARICOM team to remain, then we should be willing to approach the head of CARICOM and other leaders directly to ensure that this happens. We hope that the CARICOM team remains here, but we will still advocate for a return of the international observers. Now, clearly, Mr. Granger has owned this issue. He went out and he defended. He didn't allow the COVID task force to say, oh, we rejected them on the basis of the safety of Guyana. He himself said that, and he said he had nothing against the international observers or the Carter Center. So now that his government has approved just yesterday over 100 persons, mainly Guyanese, and I'm happy for them. I'm glad they're returning home once they go through the required protocol. All of our people who are stranded should be allowed to come home. They must all be allowed to come home, but they have to go through the safety protocol. But in this case, so now that just yesterday, they agreed to 100 persons coming in, flying into Guyana, he would have a very difficult time now justifying why they can't allow 4 international observers who are prepared to take the tests and follow the same protocol like the CARICOM team did, and the same protocol that many of those who are coming home will follow. So he is going to be in a serious bind now to explain this, because he has owned the issue. He has come out to defend it, and it was at his instance that the letter was written rejecting them. Now, clearly, the duplicity of the government's position on this matter will wend its way up to Washington. And in fact, we will point this out to the international community, that on one hand, you're saying we are concerned about the safety of Guyana, and then on the other hand, and we can't allow 4 persons to come in, and then allowing hundreds of others to come into the country. So clearly there is a political motive, in spite of him not saying so. Either dislike for the Carter Center or not, or his team of riggers do not want the Carter Center to be here to bolster the international presence. So I think it's a huge mistake on the part of Mr. Granger. Having claimed in an interview that he wants full transparency and he wants the recount to be completed properly, not allowing the international observers who are duly accredited to return is tainting that, or making people doubtful that he genuinely wants to have full transparency, because their presence here would be crucial to ensure that. Now, it must not go unnoticed that the people who signed the letter from both the Congress and the Senate calling for a return of the international observers and the Carter Center and the IRI advisors are very, very influential individuals in the legislative branch of the U.S. government. And they're the ones who have been, the executive has already made it clear that should anything go wrong, that there shall be sanctions. They have seen already enough evidence that you had wrongdoing to take a definitive position that should the wrongdoing continue, and should they attempt to swear in as any president on the basis of results that are not credible or factual, like what Patterson wants. Patterson wants the Mingo's declaration to be used to declare the national results when Mingo's declaration has already been proven to be fraudulent. So the executive in the United States government has already put out its position. It's taken a strong position right up to the Secretary of State level. So the legislative branch, which is crucial, also wrote Granger, and he has rebuffed them. Now, the people who wrote this, Mr. Series, he is in fact, there is a foreign relation committee of the Congress, and he is the head of the Western Hemisphere subcommittee of the Congress. Gregory Meeks, a senior member of the Congressional Black Caucus, they asked that the observers be returned, and Granger blanked them. And then from the Senate side, which is extremely powerful too, you had Jim Risch, who is the chairman of the Committee on Foreign Relations in the Senate, writing asking Granger to return, allow the observers to return, and he blanked him. And Marco Rubio, who is a former presidential candidate in the US, and who is a powerful senator and now is going to head the Senate Intelligence Committee, very powerful committee too. Mr. Granger just said to them, thank you, but I will not, for your letter, but I will not approve the international observers coming back. So that is going to raise major concerns as to why he doesn't want to do this. And the thing is that, as you know, he can't now claim it's for the safety of the country because we're afraid of contamination from COVID-19. Because over 100 persons, many of them out of the U.S., will be have gotten approval just yesterday to come into Guyana. So this is a major, major issue, and I'll ask President Granger to reconsider his decision, because he's acting outside of the ambit of the COVID task force, although that task force in itself is made up of partisans, and therefore I don't expect much from them, but to reconsider in the face of all that he said last night in his interview, he on Bench Cup, I think TV or radio, that to reconsider this decision. As you know, would have noted, Mr. Granger also visited the convention center, and that caused a lot of concerns among many political parties. First of all, did he visit as president or a presidential candidate? If he did as president, he probably would have a courtesy call and to see that things are going well. But then he should not really be meeting with and raising issues concerning with the elections. As a presidential candidate, he could do that, or leader of the list. But he had with him a lot of the riggers. That were his more concerns. So we saw a picture of him in a room filled with people like Valda Lawrence and Amna Ali and Joseph Harmon. These people are neck deep in the plot to rig the elections. And therefore, that caused some major concerns as to if they were there to pressure the staff and to strong arm people into accepting some of the things that they have been proposing and in trying to influence them to act in a different way, not a professional way, and to have them include some of their wild allegations that they're making into the observation report. So a lot of the parties raised concerns. The PPP wrote a letter to Claudette Singh expressing these concerns and asking that the other presidential candidates should be afforded the same sort of treatment. And let me say something. We don't want to be a complaining party. Right now, so far, there have been many issues. I said this at the last media briefing I had, that there are many, many issues that cropped up in the course of the day, and they keep popping up. And in many cases, what happens at one workstation is ignored by another workstation, so there is no uniformity in approach. And we urge GECOM to put together in writing a list of issues for direction to the supervisors and the counting staff, and they can then share those with the political parties. So it avoid every time having to seek clarity on a particular issue when it comes up, and which is slowing down the process. But in spite of that, we do have daily attempts by some overzealous person to interpret the instructions differently. And so we are addressing those. And we don't want to elevate those into a major problem at the press conference, etc. Because there are issues we can work through during the course of the day, and we tend to get them resolved. And so, but there are other issues that are of major concern to the PPP. And we are highlighting these issues, and I'll come to them in a moment. So far, we have been looking at staff assignment, the briefing patterns, who's conducting the briefing in the morning, because sometimes with the supervisors, sometimes we see individuals who we saw in that Ashman building acting strangely, conducting some briefings. So we examine these, we are very vigilant, we watch them. So these are daily issues. But I must be fair also that we have seen a serious attempt to be professional on the part of the staff thus far. And the majority of the staff. And I do not want to create the impression that we don't appreciate that issue, because we don't want to be a party that cries, as I said the last time, cries wolf on every little issue, because we have seen so far an attempt to resolve things, to move the process forward. The major problem so far is the pace of the recount and the deliberate attempt by APNU to slow this down, especially when some of the supervisors kowtow to APNU. And that the pace of the recount is a major, major concern. So we wrote Claudette Singh about that too. And we're very, very unhappy that it took 5 days for the COVID task force to give permission for 2 workstations when there is adequate room to have 6 workstations there. So this will put us way beyond the 25 days and could even jeopardize the CARICOM presence. And that is why we all have to make sure that the CARICOM team remains here, or CARICOM has a presence right up to the end of the exercise, because some people may just want, by delaying the process further, want them to exit and all the observers and others to exit. So we're very, very concerned with the pace and the slot, and about the COVID task force seeming to control what is happening in there when they should not really be. once the protocol is observed. So we'll be raising these concerns further. We thought that the additional 2 working stations that they put in place today would be assigned to Region 4. But for some strange, inexplicable reason, the chair decided that she would assign 1 to Region 6 and 1 to Region 7. So she's opened up a new region now, when the idea was to consolidate the region. Yesterday they completed Region 2. So Region 1 is completed and declared. We expect that today Region 2 will be declared. And in those declarations too, you will see the overall declaration almost accurately mirroring the declaration made by the returning officers in those regions on election day, or the day as soon as the count was done. The declaration was made. So for the 2 regions, the figures match almost exactly. So those were made, and then the 2 workstations from Region 2 were transferred into Region 6. So now Region 6, with just half the number of boxes remaining for Region 4, has 3 workstations, and Region 4, with double the number of boxes, have 3 workstations. And so of the remaining numbers, we had about 700 odd boxes of the 1,700, just over 1,700 remaining, or over 40% of the boxes that are not counted as yet are from Region 4. So you would assume that about 40% of the resources would be put towards the count in Region 4. That is at least 5 of the 12 workstations. But they have now still continued with 3 workstations. And this is part of APNU's plan right at the beginning. They'd want to delay the count of Region 4. And that is why we're watching it carefully to see if there is no sinister plan after the other regions have been counted and fully declared that they want to create some shenanigans or try to stop or tamper with the recount in Region 4. Because that could be one of the reasons why they're trying to delay Region 4 from being completed, by starving it of the resources to complete the recount in an expeditious manner. So we are very vigilant about that. I've had calls from a number of people who are concerned about this, including from the international community, and I assured them we are vigilant, and they too are very concerned about it, but we'll watch it carefully. So we have to press for more workstations. We have to keep that are respectful of the COVID protocols. We have to ask that more of the workstations assigned to Region 4 to complete Region 4. These are some of the key issues before us, and we will keep pressing the case that GECOM must approach the task force directly for the return of the international observers. The Commission must do this. So these are the major issues coming out from that we will be pursuing in the upcoming days. Whilst not overburdening you with all the daily issues that we are faced, starting from 8 in the morning. This goes from 8 in the morning to 7 in the night. All day long we're on the phone or somewhere trying to resolve issues, but those are part of the process. So we're not going to burden you with what we are doing during the course of the day. The other thing that are... So the visit by Mr. Granger and a subsequent interview last night, there are a few things that I would like to say about these, just my assessment of them. Now, Mr. Granger went there, and there were a few good things that he said. Now, you would recall that prior to that, the day before his visit, his Attorney General, Basil Williams, and Mr. Roysdale Ford, one of their candidates, in fact, the lawyer who tried for a little more, who tried to undermine Granger's recount, where that he agreed to with CARICOM, Granger and I, that the two of them said that the recount is illegal. And the laws and the Constitution do not provide for the recount. Imagine, even at this stage, when that their conclusion was that the declarations made by Mingo were therefore still as fraudulent as they were, still the basis for declaring the results of the elections. So this raised concern in the international community, I'm sure in CARICOM and among us, that we're engaged in an exercise that is a waste of time, if that is their position. And it runs contrary to everything they told the world, including Granger's statement. So Mr. Granger went, and at least he put that matter to rest, that the recount is legal, and he will accept the declaration from the chair. He said any declaration, people are speculating about what that means, the word any, declaration from the chair of GECOM, because I think nobody in their right sense would expect her, having seen the fraudulent Mingo declaration, to return to that. So I'm not going to analyze the word any here at this press conference, but at least he said, the recount, as far as I'm concerned, is legal, and he will accept the declaration made by GECOM. Now, immediately thereafter, Basil Williams said the recount is perfect, it's perfectly legal, it's provided for by the Constitution of Guyana, etc. But it just shows what we are dealing with, that there is a cabal, rigging cabal, made up, and they're rolling out all of the people, Basil Williams, Roysdale Ford. We have already talked about the others, the Christopher Jones and the others, Patterson, on a daily diet of misinformation and lies and outright total dishonesty. So the day before, he said, this recount is not legal. And that is in a legal view. And then after Granger pointed this out, that he agreed with it and he accepted it, Basil Williams now said, in a statement to the Chronicle, he said it is perfectly legal, the recount, and constitutional. And then blames Kaichor News for misquoting him, as though we are stupid. The people at Kaichor News and the reporters accurately reflected what he said. But at least we had a retraction of that statement, which was designed to undermine the validity of the recount and the purpose of the recount, which is to establish the veracity of the votes counted on that day, arising from claims that the count was tampered with. So those were two, that was a good thing about the visit. And we also saw the other minders like Cathy Hughes. The rigging cabal is mortally afraid that Granger will say these things. So Cathy Hughes was a minder standing by him at the press conference. And imagine the audacity of Cathy Hughes. When a question was posed to the president, Cathy Hughes is a junior person, tried to whisper what his answer will be. when a tough question was asked of him, she said, "We will not speculate." You know, that sort of language. She was telling him what to say because they're afraid that he goes to say for once that I will collect the SOPs that APNU has and I look at them myself. And he should really do that if he's so concerned about finding out the truth about the elections. He should just ask for their copies of the SOPs, and in one instance, in 5 minutes, he will know what he's trying. He will get the answers to what he's trying for. So the next thing is that he went on an interview with Mr. Benchcup, and you would note that he didn't mention the wild things that were the wild allegations there too, that the others were claiming, that they were like every day they produce a report, for example, for Region 1. And the report is pathetic, but I'm glad they released it because they will have to present this report when the 10 regions are counted. So we know the nonsense they're saying, and we are preparing a detailed rebuttal. So we are happy they release it. Imagine they're claiming in the report things that they didn't even object to at the recount. And it's totally misleading. It's so pathetic about poll books and all that sort of thing. It makes me believe that the same people, because I see a pattern, the same people who helped Mingo prepare the spreadsheet are the ones working on this report too. And I'm sure they're sending that report to Granger with the hope of influencing him. Don't look at the recount. Look at these allegations. So they're as outrageous as they can be. It has a twofold objective: to try to influence Granger. Oh, we were cheated, therefore you can't accept the final result. And secondly, it has the other objective of throwing red meat to their base, as Ramjatan said, to mislead their unsuspecting supporters. Like many people called and said, Freddie Kisoon said today's paper in Kaichor that the PVP rigged with the Russians the elections because they were printing skin. They were making fresh skin for people on the highway and stuff. And they're so desperate that they don't realize that it's a sarcastic letter. It's sarcasm. And that is and also they're so desperate. So this report that they have done, at least Mr. Granger didn't mention the wild allegations there. What he did, he dealt with a few other issues. And I want to say to him that he dealt with, first of all, the behavior of the diplomatic corps. And he was critical that they may have departed from standards. But what are these standards? The diplomats here, apart from their accreditation to the country, they were also accredited to observe the elections by GECOM. So they are there, rightfully so, in the process. There were other organizations that were accredited. Two, they have a duty as part of the observation mission to report on what they saw. And they all saw the fraudulent declarations of Mingo. And that is what they reported on. That's not interference. That's them doing their job and upholding the standards, the international standards of free, fair, and honest elections. And if they had done otherwise, then they would have not been credible by trying to cover up the fraud that took place. So they did their job, and they didn't do it because of they love the PPP or they hate APNU. They did it because they believe in democracy. These are countries, the Western countries, that have all spoken up, believe in democracy. And so to criticize them, and every single day they have an industry now criticizing these people, not even going to ad hominem attacks, personal attacks on them, is not going to endear you, Washington or Ottawa or London or Brussels to APNU by criticizing their representatives here. Their representatives have credibility. They don't just write a report, they just send up the facts, and all the observers saw this from over 100 countries represented here. They saw what took place, and now we are vindicated. What they said was accurate, that their declaration for Region 4 was not credible. That's the only thing they said that was not credible about the elections, because they observed the polling day, and Minister Granger was pleased to announce, and he wrote in his dossier to Washington that the elections were free and fair and I won the elections. That's what he said, and now they're changing in the narrative. So criticizing the international observers and the diplomats because they're doing what their job and for calling out the fraud that APNU was engaged in, it's not helpful to him or anyone else. He's the only person who doesn't know about this fraud. Even the riggers know that they've lost, but he claims he doesn't know. So, and then hiring a firm to lobby those governments, the same governments, to change the situation after criticizing them for being involved. So I hope he tempers his criticism and Mr. Granger would look at what they said. If he is serious about this, and I want to believe, people think I'm being duped, but I want to believe that there still may be some shred of decency in him, not that rigging cabal, the Harmons and the others. And therefore, he should look at what they all said, including the CARICOM observation team. And he should look at the evidence coming out. Look at the Kite Show News. Look at our documents. Ask them within. And you will see what they said and what everyone has been saying is accurate. The only thing that it has not been accurate is the reports and that Harman and Valda and the other riggers are being given to him. If he really wants to look into this matter and he's serious about it. Mr. Granger spoke about sanctions. And he said, my government has done nothing wrong. And I do not think those sanctions would be justified. If it is shown that my government has behaved legally and the election process was a legitimate one and that it satisfies international norms. So he has one opportunity to prove that. That is the recount. But his people are trying to undermine even the recount. Because clearly he can't say that nothing was done wrong with the Mingo Declaration. So the recount is the only chance to avoid the sanction. And he says that there must be evidence. I saw DPI putting out a release that the sanctions, which says sanctions are bad for the country and there must be evidence before sanctions are applied. Well, Mr. Granger advocated for sanctions in 2014 when Mr. Ramatar had prorogued the parliament. And he, at that time, said it would cripple the country, and he repeats it. So he's very much aware about sanctions on the country and personal sanctions. But he says there must be evidence of wrongdoing. So look at first evidence, Mingo. We have all the evidence in the world that Mingo's spreadsheet was fraudulent. Up to now, GECOM has not released that spreadsheet. Why don't they just release it? If Mingo made a declaration, he had to add numbers for all the boxes. Why not release to the public his spreadsheet that he added down. And then we'll see whether they match the recount or not, or the SOPs. And they haven't released the SOPs. So Mingo's, that's evidence of fraud. So sanctions can be applied on that basis. They wanted to swear him in. 3 times they tried to swear him in on the basis of these fraudulent results. Luckily, he didn't agree to that. And GECOM didn't make that declaration. And we fought for and got the recount. Or else by now, there would have been sanctions already. So evidence about that. And then evidence that is, he could argue that Mingo was a staff of GECOM. So his government, his party had nothing to do with it. So in case there is sanction, it must go against Mingo himself. I think that is what he is getting at, that he was not aware of it. But he has to take responsibility for it because he is president and he is the head of that party. And so how come they are not involved when Harman and Patterson are defending Mingo's declaration? Harman was upset when Bruce Golding spoke about Mingo's declaration. So they own the dog. They've owned the dog, the Mingo, in this case. So they are part of it, and they have to take responsibility. How is it that Valder Lawrence's signature got on the fraudulent declaration? The first one was made when no other region has a signature of any party representative on their declaration. Only Region 4, with Mingo and Valder signing, meant that Valder was present, that there was some plot that involved both sides. How is it that in each of these cases, in Mingo's inflation of the result, they're all, or changing the result, he inflated only for APNU and decreased for PPP? Is that not evidence of complicity? So there is, if he is saying he is not involved directly, then he needs to shut down the people who are still part of it there, who are trying still to undermine the process. So so that point about him saying, oh, sanctions are bad for the country, but there must be evidence of wrongdoing. Well, there has been evidence of wrongdoing. But we are saying, let's move forward. Let's look to the future. Let's get this recount done. Let the legitimate government be sworn in. Then there is no need to talk about sanctions. We can just move on. And that brings me to the final point where he talks about inclusive government and 51% can't behave as though they want 100%. And this used to be the mantra of APNU in 2011 and up to 2014, 2015. And then when they won the elections, they got us 50.8% of the votes. The PPP had 49, I think, so 0.2 or something like that percent of the votes. They then behaved as though they had 100%. All of the committees were changed, everything in the parliament. So they behaved one way, and now they're saying that this shouldn't be. They won by just over 4,000 votes. We're going to win by 3-4 times that sum in these elections. And yet they behave. Look at the arrogance about public funds and spending and all of that. So I believe that we have to. I agree with him about inclusionary form of government, that we have to do the decent thing, let the recount be completed, let a new government be sworn in on the basis of those results, and then we can talk, as we put in our manifesto, which is our promise to the people of the country, that we need constitutional changes to address issues of governance, and GECOM, the conduct of elections. Just read our manifesto and you will see those. So I agree that we have to look to the future and to some form of inclusionary government, but you can't be so duplicitous again. I want to say to the people who've been calling me, don't worry about all of these frivolous things that APNU is coming, hoping to negate the elections and call for new elections. Their reports are coming out, their so-called reports that they're outrageous and circulating now in the base, etc., coming out, and we debunk all of those because they're not based much on substance. It's just lies. And secondly, this is a recount exercise. The numbers are matching the numbers that we have on our SOPs, and once the recount is completed, to the end, the numbers will show a victory for the PPP. That means they can, all of this so-called lies that they have, they can put it in an election petition and go to the court. But I suspect they will not even do that because they can't even make a credible case in court about the elections. So these are people who are totally dishonest. And GECOM needs to, this is the last point I'm going to make, that GECOM is silent. Claudette Singh and Lowenfield and the others, they're allowing on a daily basis APNU to trash the entire staff of GECOM. Not a few people, but the entire staff of GECOM. And those who work on election day, maybe 10,000 people, that APNU is trashing everyone, all those people, by making these wild allegations that GECOM was complicit in the fraud across the whole country. And just to avoid responding to these wild allegations. That is what they're doing. GECOM, the APNU doesn't even have a shred of decency, these riggers, to throw their own polling agents, the people who work, most of them voluntarily, for them on election day, who sign on those SOPs all across the country. They're even throwing them under the bus. But they can throw their supporters under the bus, but GECOM must not allow APNU with their basket of lies, their report of lies about fraudulent behavior. They must not allow that to succeed. And therefore, they must defend the process. They all know what took place. GECOM, Claudette Singh said after the election, free, fair, and credible elections, just on March 3rd. Every international group has said that. And they are trying every day to undermine that. That means undermining the work of the staff on election day. The few people in there, it wasn't the 10,000 people that we had problems with. We had problems with the few, Mingo and others, who were trying to rig the elections and alter the results. Because as you can see in the recount, that those people acted professionally. In most cases across the country, their statements of recount are matching the statements of poll. So we'll keep bringing update and perspectives on various issues to you. As I said before, if you don't see us addressing every minor issue in the media, is because a lot of those issues can be resolved, and therefore we don't want to be seen as, complaining all the time about these matters. I've said to the people from our side who are going to the media, who speak for us, that they must ensure that we remain focused on the big issues and on the critical things. And those are the things that we're focused on. So thank you very much.